Yo, what's up guys? I'm here with a video. It's a video that was requested on the Hashpack Discord developer chat. So if you're not in that, definitely join it. I'll put the link in that in the description. Really good place for developers if you're building on Hedera Hashgraph, or if you're interested as well. And if you're using the Hashpack app, obviously you can use that for any questions you have. The guys over there are very, very helpful. Now the topic that I'm going to be going through today is building a transaction on server side, then signing it with one of the parties, sending it in a byte format to the front end, basically then taking it out of the byte format and signing it and submitting it with the front end client, with the web client. So this has been requested, and yeah, it's very, very kind of used in lots of applications. I've used it many times myself. Very, very important, because obviously you don't want to have private keys on a front end server. So you want to have them separated back end and front end essentially. Now, the way that I've done it is I'm using a Svelte kit app. Alternatively, you can have like a front end app and a back end app, and then send requests via API routes which you build yourself. I've done the same thing. I've built my own API using kind of stuff that comes out of the box with Svelte, but I decided to do Svelte just because I've been using it a lot recently. Really liking it. So I did it yesterday, and it's a very, very simple app. If I show you how it's looking, so this command here, npm run dev -- open, what that will do is it automatically opens it up, and it should just pop up shortly. There we go. Yeah, looking at the HBAR price, it's depending on your outlook, it's good or bad. I think it's good. Now, essentially what this thing does is a very, very simple app. So we've got our pair button, up pops Hashpack, and with that we then obviously type in our password. Damn it. And we'll be then asked to pair, approve that, and then this transact button comes up. So this is a conditional, and essentially the transaction is a very, very simple one. What we're actually doing is we're receiving 100 HBAR. However, the client account, the web account, is going to be the account which pays for the transaction fees. Therefore, we also need to sign it. Now, the reason why the other account is needed to sign it is obviously because the other account on the server side will be sending the 100 HBAR, and anything that leaves your account you must sign for. So for now I'm just going to reject it, and I'm just going to kind of show the code basically. So over here in the code we've got this page plus page.svelte. This is this is the front end side of things, and then we've also got this API folder with a transaction route and a plus server.ts file name. This plus and page server, this is all things unique to Svelte, and it just basically by naming it this, it does all of the stuff behind the work which allows you to interact with front end and back end, server side, client side, all seamlessly. So let's just go break it down from the beginning, and we'll look at the front end. So obviously we've imported Hashconnect, we've imported the transfer transaction from the Hashgraph SDK, and before so yeah, I mean essentially we've got, you saw the HTML, very, very straightforward. Just H1 saying initiate transaction, two buttons which have their own function. So we've got this on click function for pairing, and we've got this transact function for the actual transaction, and only once we have a connected ID, aka once we've paired a wallet, then this button will show. So we've got a little conditional there as well. Now this on click function, all it is doing is it's basically calling the Hashconnect connect wallet. But before we're allowed to access this Hashconnect object and call the methods within it, we obviously need to set up Hashconnect itself. So because SvelteKit runs on the server side and then also client side, we need to basically say we can only initialize Hashpack once we are in a browser environment, because the Hashpack object, when we're instantiating this object, then we need to be in a browser environment. I think it uses the document object or the window object or something. So once we are in the browser, if browser, again browser is just something which we can import from Svelte, And this basically detects when we're in the browser environment. So client only code goes here. Init hash pack, we're then doing this, it returns the data, it's asynchronous, so we're going to then say, then with the response, which is the init data, we're going to add a pairing event, so we're going to say hashconnect.pairing event. Once there's a pairing event, make the connected ID equal to the first account. This is actually an array, so you can pair multiple accounts. Then we're just going to console log that connected ID, and we're also going to set up the provider and signer over here, because the provider signer API is what we're going to be using in order to sign and submit the transaction. You can use it another way as well. You can use the .send transaction function method within the Hashconnect object, but I quite like using the provider signer API. Essentially, the provider allows you to read information, and the signer allows you to write information. So yeah, that's basically what we're saying. We're saying, right, once there's a pairing event, make connected ID equal to an account. And that's also what then triggers this if connected ID to run, because once we've actually set this variable to be something which is a truthy, then this will become true and this will then be displayed. So next up, we've got the transact button. Apologies if I'm going a bit quickly as well, but I suppose, yeah, you can always pause. And this transact function, this is going to be calling the API route which we've just made. So the only thing that we're passing through is the connected ID. That's going to be the body of the post request. And we're going to this endpoint, so it's the API/transaction endpoint. And now I think it's a good time to pop over to our endpoint over here on the SvelteKit API directory. So this, again, we're using this JSON import from, it's a function, JSON import from SvelteKit. This comes out of the box. This is that when we return the bytes, we return it in a JSON format so we can then use it on the other side of things. And basically, so this post request, this should be, I think if I say as page, whatever, I won't do that for now. This is just a TypeScript error. Binding has it, whatever. So essentially, this takes in the request as one of the arguments, and that's all that we need at the moment. You can obviously get cookies and this and that, whatever. We're just dealing with the request, and the request is going to be this. Okay. Before I go on, we also need to inject this variable global to equal either global or window in our script, because again, the Hashconnect module requires a global variable. So we need to do that as well. That's something that I should have mentioned. Nonetheless, back over to this server side of things, we are going to be taking in the connected ID. That's because that's what we're passing it. We're stringifying it in JSON format. So it's going to be like connected ID is connected ID, basically. This is just shorthand for it. Now we're passing that in. We're then destructuring it in order to get the connected ID, and then we're going to be generating the transaction ID from that string, from that connected ID string, because we're not going to be using the freeze with method over here and using freeze with client, which is what you typically find in the documentation for Hashpack, the Hedera hash graph. What we're actually going to be doing is the .freeze method. This just means that you can kind of freeze it without having to give any specific account ID doing it. But in order to use this particular method, we need to set the node accounts and we need to set the transaction ID. Now, once that has been set, we can then call this .freeze. Obviously, the transfer transaction, which is the important part, this is going to be taking the .env folder that I've got over here. So that's obviously another npm module I installed, .env environment variables. I'm going to be adding an hbar transfer for the account ID, which I've put in my M file. This is obviously just the account ID for my developer account. So going to be sending 100 hbar, therefore 100 will be leaving, therefore minus 100, and connected ID, which is going to be the fee paying account over on the front end, is going to be receiving 100. Minus 100 plus 100 is 0. All of your transfers must add up to 0. Then we're going to be signing it with the private key, so private key from string. This .sign function, you need to actually pass in a properly converted private key class. Therefore, you need to use the private key .from string method if you're passing in a string, which I am. So we're signing that. It's asynchronous, so we need to await it. And then once that's signed once this transaction has been signed with the account which is sending 100 HBAR, we're then going to convert it to bytes and then return that. And what that's going to then do is send it over back to the front end, and from there we get our request. So we get our response, sorry. So we've made a request, this is the request. We then get the response back, and we're going to say response.json. This is equal to bytes. We can console log out bytes, and the bytes is actually an object with two properties, one of which is not relevant, but the data property is relevant. This is actually has the bytes array. So then we're going to be, this is why we imported this transfer transaction on the front end, because we're converting it from bytes. Before we used 2 bytes, now we're using from bytes, and now this is going to be the transaction class, just what we want. And then we can do tx.execute with signer with the signer API over here. And yeah, so let's run it through one more time. I'm just going to clear my local storage, because again, this app is very incomplete. It's not handling sort of any things. Now when so yeah, what we could do is actually we could now, obviously I've just cleared it, but before I cleared the local storage, we could read the local storage and then automatically pair the hash pack, assuming that there is save data in there. But for now, bro, I don't care. Turn off all notifications. Close the app as well. Okay. So we're going to pair it, approve. Now we're also going to do the transact button. This time we are going to approve. Now it says you send nothing, you receive HBAR. Obviously we're going to be paying a little bit of a fee, but once that's approved, then as you can see we get our okay, so this is what I was talking about. So yeah, the type buffer, and then the data is what we're interested in. So that's this particular line over here where we're console logging out the bytes, and then console.log submit. This is the response which you can then use to validate whether the transaction's been successful. So as you can see, we've got this here, and yeah, we've got the transaction hash, the transaction ID. If we then go over to our hash pack, we can see that it's been happened, and as you can see, it's 0.004 HBAR. So let's have a look at how much that is. There we go. Yeah, look, it's like a 10,000th of a dollar. Pretty impressive. HBAR prices declined today, 4% down. Someone knows why it's dumping so hard? Let me know. Because I don't know. I've heard maybe that the Treasury is selling some accounts for funding and stuff, which is obviously necessary. So to be honest, if you believe in HBAR, it's a perfect time to buy. But yeah, that's not any, what's it called, financial advice. But yeah, let me know any questions, more video suggestions. I just invested in a new camera, and I've got a microphone as well, so hopefully all of my video quality is a bit better. And yeah, that's it for now. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, always ask me questions, hit me up in the Discord, any chat, like I'm always happy to help. My business circle students, actually, we're going to be doing like weekly here at Hashgraph and Python sessions, amongst other things as well. If you yourself actually have like a skill which you'd be interested in teaching, it doesn't have to be coding related, it can be academic, it can be physical, it can be self-defense, anything like that. Check out, well, I'll be putting more information out on this channel actually, because yeah, I think I'm building quite a cool little project, and it's all related with this decentralization, distributed ledger technology, cryptocurrency, NFTs, and certificates, all of that stuff. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and everyone, take care.